the dish that divided an entire city. It appeared on one menu and immediately split the room. People didn't just dislike it, they argued about it. This story matters now because food has become a proxy for identity. What we eat signals who we are, where we belong, and what we stand for. Rarely does a single dish force a city to confront itself. To understand how one plate divided an entire city, we need to return to a moment when taste stopped being personal and became political. Because today, disagreement still travels fastest through culture. The dish was introduced without warning. No press, no build-up, just a new item listed plainly among familiar offerings. On the surface, it looked simple, familiar ingredients, traditional structure. Nothing suggested controversy. The first reactions were quiet. Some guests pushed the plate away after one bite. Others asked for it again immediately. Tables debated in hushed tones. Servers noticed attention before reviews appeared. Word spread fast, not about flavor, but about meaning. Some claimed the dish disrespected tradition. Others said it finally told the truth. Old arguments resurfaced, framed through food instead of words. The city had a long culinary history, closely guarded. Certain flavors were treated as sacred, certain techniques as untouchable. This dish crossed an invisible line. The chef insisted nothing radical had been done. The recipe was rooted in local memory. But one element had been altered, not replaced, reconsidered. That single change destabilized everything people thought they knew. Soon, the dish became unavoidable. Newspapers referenced it indirectly. Radio shows debated it openly. Social gatherings turned into arguments. People who had never visited the restaurant formed strong opinions. The restaurant filled every night. Some came to protest. Others came to confirm allegiance. Very few arrived neutrally. What was once a plate of food had become a mirror, reflecting class, generation, belonging, resistance. And as the city grew louder, the kitchen grew quieter, because the chef understood something critical. The conflict was no longer about taste. It was about who gets to decide what culture is allowed to become. As the debate intensified, the dish escaped the restaurant entirely. People who had never tasted it spoke with certainty. Opinions hardened without experience. The city argued in abstractions, not flavors. Inside the restaurant, pressure mounted from all sides. Traditionalists demanded removal. Supporters demanded defense. Media requested statements. Silence was interpreted as provocation. The chef refused to comment. Explanation would reduce the dish to ideology. The plate was meant to be eaten, not argued. Letting others define it felt safer than defining it himself. That restraint angered critics further. They accused the restaurant of hiding behind ambiguity, of stirring controversy without accountability. But the chef understood the trap. Once food is framed as argument, it stops being food. Guests continued arriving in waves. Some ordered only the dish, ignoring the rest of the menu. Others refused to let it touch the table. Servers learned to navigate tension delicately. A meal could turn confrontational with one question. Behind the scenes, the kitchen felt the weight. Cooks were questioned outside of work. Families argued at home. The dish followed them everywhere. What began as creative expression now carried social consequence. The chef considered removing it, not because it failed, but because it succeeded too loudly. The city was no longer listening. It was shouting. But then something unexpected happened. A quiet night. No press. No debate. A table of regulars ordered the dish without comment. They ate slowly, thoughtfully. No one argued. That night reminded the chef why the dish existed. Not to divide, but to surface something unresolved. And unresolved things do not disappear when silenced. They wait. The story now moved toward its most volatile moment. The volatility arrived through escalation. Public forums organized debates. Cultural leaders issued statements. The dish was no longer discussed as food, but as symbol. Every bite carried assumed intent. The restaurant became a battleground. Protesters gathered outside on weekends. Supporters lined up in response. Reservations turned into declarations. Eating there meant choosing a side. Inside the kitchen, exhaustion set in, not from service, but from pressure. The team cooked under scrutiny that had nothing to do with quality. Mistakes felt amplified. Neutrality felt impossible. The chef questioned the responsibility of authorship. When expression triggers division, is withdrawal an obligation? Or does removal confirm fear? The answer came unexpectedly from an elder, a respected figure in the city's culinary history, visited quietly. No announcement, no entourage. They ordered the dish without comment. After eating, they said only this: "We argued about the same thing decades ago, just with different words." That sentence reframed everything. The conflict was not new. The dish had not created division. It had revealed it. Generational tension, shifts in identity, fear of erosion mistaken for protection. The chef decided then to keep the dish, not as provocation, but as record, a marker of a moment the city was already living through. Over time, the noise softened, protests faded, arguments lost urgency. What remained was conversation, slower, less reactive. The dish settled into the menu, still controversial, still ordered selectively, but no longer explosive. It had done what culture often does best. It forced a pause. And in that pause, the city began to listen again. The story now approached its resolution. The resolution did not arrive as agreement. It arrived as fatigue. The city grew tired of shouting. The dish remained, unchanged, quietly waiting for whoever was willing to taste before judging. Over time, the arguments softened into curiosity. People who once refused to try it ordered it cautiously. Some still disliked it. Others found unexpected meaning. But fewer people felt the need to declare allegiance. The dish became normalized without becoming accepted, and that distinction mattered. It did not replace tradition. It sat beside it, a reminder that culture does not move in straight lines. The restaurant returned to its rhythm. The dining room felt lighter. Conversations returned to food, then drifted elsewhere. The city moved on, carrying the experience quietly. Years later, the dish was rarely mentioned in debates, but it remained on the menu, not as provocation, as evidence. Evidence that culture can withstand disagreement without collapsing. Looking back, the chef understood the true division was never about ingredients. It was about fear. Fear of loss, fear of change, fear of voices rising without permission. By refusing to remove the dish, the restaurant did not take a side. It held space. In a world quick to polarize, that choice feels increasingly rare. Not every conflict needs resolution. Some need endurance. Because sometimes the role of culture is not to unify. It is to reveal what we are not ready to confront yet. What the dish story also reveals is something about the specific role that food plays in cultural conflict. Political arguments can be dismissed as abstract. Economic debates can be framed as matters of opinion. But food is immediate and physical. It enters the body. It triggers memory. It carries the weight of the table at which we first ate it, of who taught us to love it, of what it meant to belong to the people who made it. When a dish challenges a culinary tradition, it challenges all of that simultaneously. It does not just ask whether the flavor works. It asks whether the inheritance is what we believed it was, whether our relationship to the past is accurate, whether the love we carry for a tradition is strong enough to survive the tradition itself evolving. Those are not questions that culinary argument can answer. They are questions that cultural maturity answers. Over time, through the slow, uncomfortable process of a community, learning to hold two things at once: reverence and curiosity, loyalty and openness, the certainty that something matters deeply, and the recognition that what matters deeply can survive being questioned. The city in this story did not arrive at that place easily or quickly. The dish forced a confrontation that the city was not entirely ready for. And forced confrontations are always painful. But they are also sometimes necessary, because unexamined inheritance calcifies. Traditions that cannot be questioned cannot grow. Communities that cannot absorb dissent from within become vulnerable to change from without. The dish was not the cause of the city's division. It was the occasion for a division that already existed to become visible. And visible division, however uncomfortable, is always more honest than invisible tension. The chef, who kept the dish on the menu, was not choosing conflict over community. They were choosing honesty over performance, trusting that the community was strong enough to survive the discomfort. And in the end, the community was not unchanged, not undamaged, but stronger for having had the argument, for having been forced to articulate what it actually believed about the tradition it thought it was protecting, and what it was actually willing to allow that tradition to become. That conversation is never finished, but it could not begin until someone put a plate on a table and refused to take it back. Sometimes, the most important thing a kitchen can do is ask the city a question it has been avoiding, and trust the city to find its own answer.